Thank you everyone for joining us today. As mentioned, my name is Chelsea. I am the supervising attorney at Raju Law. Before we get started, I just want to remind you that this is meant to be for educational purposes only. This isn't supposed to be legal consultation, and it in no way forms like a client relationship. We're just wanting to talk to you today about what we've learned about the EB2 NIW, specifically this proposed endeavor, which is a key component of a successful EB2 NIW petition. So many times clients come to us and they say, my NIW was not approved, my first approval, denial, can you please help me? And when we review their self-petition, what we understand is that they have not understood this concept of the proposed endeavor when they self-petitioned. And automatically that will reduce your chances of approval if you do not have a well-tailored proposed endeavor to present with your petition. It's a backbone of the petition, and we will discuss today why that is the case and how you can create a strong NIW with this proposed endeavor tailored to your expertise or area of interest. Next slide, please. Specifically, the importance of the proposed endeavor, it is going to be the key thing that the USCIS uses to compare to the three-factor framework set forth in the Donisser case, which is the presiding case in the EB2 NIW. The importance of the proposed endeavor in the NIW petition cannot be understated. You can be a very successful expert within your field. You can have publications, you can have awards, accolades, letters of recommendation, high salary. You can have all of these things and still get a denial if you do not have a great proposed endeavor that clearly sets forth your future plans. So one key thing that you should be able to do in a successful proposed endeavor is you should be able to summarize the key goal or the key objective within just 2 to 3 sentences. Now, the actual document itself, we'll discuss how it becomes much longer than that, but really you should be able to sum up. Think about, we talk about elevator pitches. If you're in the elevator with someone, you're going to the 10th floor and you're wanting to quickly tell them what your research is about or what your key objectives will be in the future. You have a very short amount of time to do this, 1 or 2 minutes. What are the 3 sentences you would say? If you cannot put your proposed endeavor into that amount of, condensed framework, it's probably too broad. For instance, in the matter of Donisser, the petitioner's proposed endeavor was to, quote, advance hypersonic technology research. By making a more detail-oriented approach, you can explicitly state why the proposed endeavor has substantial merit, national importance, and why the proposed endeavor is going to be aligned to the interests of the United States in such a way that makes it urgent enough to grant this NIW waiver.
I can take this one, Chelsea. Exactly how Chelsea has said, just building off of that, continuing, what is this proposed endeavor? Unfortunately, USCIS does not have very clear guidance on what they want to see. Unfortunately, there isn't like a checklist that we can just check off and that will get it approved. It is a little more vague than that, but based on our experience, we've kind of tailored these statements to see, based on previous approvals and denials, to see what they want and to have it in a concise way. Like Chelsea said, we typically take the approach where it be a personal statement about 3 to 5 pages long. I think other firms take different approaches. This is what we found to be successful for us in some cases, most cases, I should say. In terms of laying out your proposed endeavor, we typically include someone's job title. What is their title in the United States? Are you going to be an engineer? Are you going to be a certain researcher? But beyond the job title, the advanced skill set is also something that is very important to include, especially because a lot of applicants have, a wide range of skill sets that could be applied to different fields, or they might have a couple of advanced degrees that could be applied to different fields. So including that information is also important as well. Something else that the proposed endeavor should do is to show a broader implication beyond one employer. We've especially seen a focus on this under the new policy updates, new administration. So it's not about just what you are doing for your company and how the company may have a broader impact on the United States. It's really about how are your advancements, how is your product, how is that going to impact the United States on a broader scale. The statement should also be forward-looking. You can't just write a statement detailing all of your past accomplishments, whether those be awards, papers, research, or work experience, and expect for that to be enough. Although that is a great factor to include, we want to show the forward-looking. We want this to be the roadmap to your success in the United States. And by doing so, we want to define short and long-term goals. Think of the next few years, perhaps, and how are you going to build in the long term? How are you going to build off of those short-term goals? So, we've seen previously in RFEs where people like self-petitioners especially will be attacked on this issue because their statement was perhaps too broad, or they haven't outlined how they're going to achieve that goal. So, if you have, I want to advance like semiconductor technology, maybe that's not enough, but we would take the approach by, I want to advance semiconductor technology by doing X, Y, and Z. So having those goals laid out is also very important. And again, having a strong profile or background is not enough, as we both have said, unfortunately. You need to clearly lay out why your work is in the national importance and why it will have the broader impact.
Yes. So the steps to decide on a proposed endeavor, that is the first question that many prospective clients will have for us. They'll say, well, how do I know when I'm meeting this objective? And the key to this is that we want this to be authentic to each applicant. And we find that having that authenticity really speaks to exceptional ability, demonstrating an advanced skill set. So therefore, our firm has found that it's important to work closely with clients that retain us to identify an issue in your field. Most of you already are thinking of something that is a key issue, or maybe where the technology is headed, maybe where the industry is headed within your field. And that's a great place to start by identifying a key pressing issue in your field that's impacting the United States broadly. That's a great place to start with where your proposed endeavor may take root. And so it's not enough to identify a problem and to have skills that could overcome it. We want an articulated solution. A solution is something that expands both short term and long term. So over 10 years, think something that can cascade over a decade. We want you to have a solution that demonstrates the use of your advanced skill set, a methodical approach. We don't want you to come across, the USCIS will not like it if you say, well, I could do this, or AI will broadly impact healthcare technology and supply chain. That's too much for the USCIS. They say, we don't care how AI impacts the United States. We want to know how you impact AI by deploying your skills in AI. So what we find is that helping our clients understand that inverse mindset of not how will maybe the technology that you create, can it broadly impact 5 or 6 different industries? We find that a more successful approach is to create a solution that's very tailored to a specific issue within a specific field. Now, unless you're developing a prototype that then has other implications, I think that would be the only minor exception to that. We see that sometimes with research scientists, biomedical engineers, etc. So I would keep that in mind. A solution should be tailored to the specific issue, keep it narrow, travel down your own lane with that, and follow it out with a solid explanation as to how you're well positioned. This connects to your achievements, your awards, your prior accomplishments, your projects, your publications, your high salary, any kind of recognition that you may have within your field for your expertise will come into light here. Now, think about it this way. The proposed endeavor is a future statement, so there won't be as much discussion about your past accomplishments in the proposed endeavor. That's more for the NIW petition. However, in that proposed endeavor, we do need to draw a strong connection to your past accomplishments. We would not want to develop a proposed endeavor for a water resource engineer, tailored to mitigating some kind of water use issues, flooding issues, if that person in fact had a totally different degree. We want to demonstrate that there is a strong connection to that water resource engineering. So a degree in water, some kind of engineering related to environmental, background, some kind of work experience, some kind of, if there's a publication or a project, we would just want to spend a little bit of time developing that connection in the proposed endeavor, saving the main discussion of that well-positioned argument for the NIW petition itself.
Exactly, which is another thing that perhaps self-petitioners or maybe even clients don't quite understand the distinction. So we do submit a separate proposed endeavor statement along with the petition, just to clearly explain to the officer what the exact goals are, and then using the petition as a space to explain things further. Continue on this conversation, what not to do. Chelsea has already touched on some of these. So again, don't just pick a popular issue just because it's, in the media or like a talking point in your field right now. We see a lot of like AI is very popular, but if you have no experience in AI, you don't need to make your proposed endeavor tailored to that just because you think it will increase your chance of approval. That will not. Just because things are, being in the media or a very popular topic doesn't increase your chance of approval. The things that will increase your chances of approval are more so if it's aligned with your experience, your degree. Those are what we want to see, a tailored issue. And again, don't rely on your attorney just to create the proposed endeavor for you. Like Chelsea said, it needs to be true to you. I've had people come into consultations being like, what can I do? What can my proposed endeavor be based on my background? And that's not really something I can answer for you. Not just because I'm not an expert in every field, certainly, but it needs to be true to you and your goals and your career trajectory. If let's say if I made one up for a client and they wouldn't be able to explain that fully to USCIS officer, we don't want to get any kind of fraudulent activity, certainly, but we do want to make sure that it aligns with your career goals and trajectory, and making sure that it's true to what you can actually do. And, if it's not something that aligns with your skills, perhaps it's not really a reality for you.
And that leads us to this discussion of, well, what types of proposed endeavors could possibly be successful? And the classic answer for all attorneys is that depends, right? There's so many subjectively objective factors that come into play for a successful petition and a successful proposed endeavor. There's things that absolutely would not work for one client that you could petition for another client just because of their background or area of expertise. So there's a lot of variables. That's why working with an attorney can be helpful. While we can't create your proposed endeavor for you, we can help guide you in discerning which strengths and weaknesses apply to your case and how to best present those strengths in a way that best create a success, possibility of approval. So keeping in mind, the key thing to think about first is whether you have peer-reviewed research publications, or are you an industry-based, work-based client where maybe your expertise, it's common in some industries not to have peer-reviewed publications. So in those cases, in-house, we call those work-based petitions or work-based proposed endeavors. Identifying which pathway you may fall into would be the first key step here. For instance, research-based could be cancer research, or you could have some kind of potentially AI research. You could also be an engineer with publications. We've seen some seismic activity, like for earthquakes, for certain engineering clients who've had a lot of publications in that field. It works really well to think about where your research has been and where it's headed. I think that makes a really great proposed endeavor starting point for those clients who have research-based approach to their professional career. PhD students, same thing. There's research usually involved in a PhD program, so you can think about where your research is headed, where it's been, kind of map out what that 10-year trajectory could look like, and your proposed endeavor could likely be very similar or complementary in some way. Similarly, or in contrast, actually, work-based projects, they tend to have maybe more challenges finding their starting point, because a lot of times they're working with an employer who is creating projects kind of for them in a sense. However, I think that most experts, even who are industry-based, what they find is that these projects and initiatives follow key trends within their field. For instance, emerging issues within the field. If you're a fintech employee, or a fintech developer, then one thing you're constantly focusing on is certain key issues within the fintech realm. So this idea of cybersecurity, or being some kind of systems engineer of some kind. Like there's multifocal skill sets that go into play there. And I think that thinking about those emerging issues, you will start to see patterns. So thinking about what projects could build your proposed endeavor. So maybe look back the last 4 or 5 years, see what projects you've been a part of, with in mind keeping where you may get letters of recommendation, because we will have a hard time developing a sense of credibility with the USCIS if we do not have some kind of confirmation for that prior project. For research-based clients, they are able to lean on publications to confirm that certain projects existed or research existed. So I like to ask clients or prospective clients to keep that in mind as well. Work-based or industry-based proposed endeavors will need to be corroborated with letters of recommendation, project certifications, awards, etc. We cannot just rely on the resume. So brainstorm first which projects you could get great letters of recommendations for, and then start looking at the trends. What are the key components? Where are the emerging issues within the field? What can we do to connect those things? And I think that is where you will find a successful sort of starting point for that proposed endeavor. And lastly, we are currently seeing more entrepreneurs developing businesses within the United States. Maybe they're app developers, entrepreneurs. In my opinion, in my experience, I think that this becomes a bit more challenging, typically because of the immigration journey itself doesn't lend itself to entrepreneurs in the short-term goals. I tend to think of those as more successful long-term goals. And that is true, especially for people who are trying to disseminate their information nationwide. Maybe they start off only being able to impact their town, city, or state, but then over time they can grow it by starting a company and consulting nationwide. We have seen that be successful for clients. Again, it's really a case-by-case basis. We would want it to be practical to your proposed endeavor. And for the reasons I previously mentioned, I don't always find it a great short-term goal. I rarely find it to be something that the USCIS would find practical, just because of the complexities of becoming an entrepreneur without a green card. It's very limited, it's very challenging, and so for that reason, I tend to think it's a better short-term or long-term goal than short-term goal.
Agreed. And just to touch back on that, I do see a lot of prospective clients coming in to ask, like, I don't have any citations, I don't have any research, can I still be successful in this route? And I say, yes, if you can get this evidence to corroborate your industry experience. So very important that Chelsea touched on that as well.